wanted to ask, what was your business model before? And obviously, there's a massive disruption going on at this moment of recording COVID-19. What has your business model evolved or innovated and pivoted to since then?
So when I started with internet video in general, as well as music, it was more a one-to-many model. The idea being, if people resonated with my message, they wanted to join my community, they could just spend a few dollars here and there, buy some music, maybe buy a DVD back when DVDs were a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I continued that. I recently expanded to an e-commerce store as well, and was selling clothing, like custom clothing that I designed and worked with designers on. And then the Dare to Dream School was still kind of in a beta mode. So I had just beta tested my courses and my products, but I'm so grateful that I had started that and had that knowledge business, that consulting company. I was somewhat established in it, had done some one-on-one consulting as well, built up the course, because when the pandemic hit, suddenly sending physical products became a lot more difficult. A lot of my suppliers were scrambling to continue functioning. They were working at half capacity, then a quarter capacity, then they shut down completely, then they tried to reopen, but then were having trouble, like they were having trouble with shipping. So I actually ended up pausing my store for a while because it was just so hard to keep up with what was happening, with the shipping deadlines changing and supply being affected, the supply chain being affected. So I was so grateful that we had already begun and tested the beta course for Dare to Dream School. I had already had some clients. So we were able to, me and my team, we were able to quickly pivot and focus more back on the consulting. So instead of a one-to-many, it was one-to-one or one to a small group, but being able to charge a higher price because that was consulting versus, you know, the value of like music and that sort of thing. People don't expect to spend a lot for that sort of thing. So we were able to just quickly, I updated the sales page, put it on a new platform. And even though we weren't supposed to relaunch the course until later in the year, suddenly everything changed. We scrapped our entire e-commerce plan. We had all these sales planned, and we just scrapped everything, made a I suppose you could say we were just almost winging it, or kind of. We put together a quick plan.
Yeah.
And so I'm about to do a soft launch of that business for video confidence course that I had beta tested last year. And I have people enrolling, thankfully, because I had been nurturing during this time. So I'm very grateful I had a digital product to pivot to in this time.
Wow. So essentially you went from having an e-commerce store, it being completely disrupted by supply and delivery. You've had to pretty much pause it or shut it for the time being. And then you've kind of curated what you've learned through this whole process and combined it with mindset coaching to create courses for other people.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So the e-commerce, I would say if I had already been very comfortable with Facebook ads and that sort of thing, but then maybe I could have continued during the pandemic, because some of my equals in that area, they've been doing okay. So I'm not saying that e-commerce is entirely hit, but as someone who sold, you could say luxury items, you know, things that people don't need, like music and sometimes I sold physical CDs. Some people still liked that. And then the clothing I sold kind of at a premium as well. So it was just suddenly people weren't reacting to the sales, on sales, and nobody was buying. So if I had a really solid Facebook kind of campaign already going, then maybe I could have
Mm.
survived. But I don't regret it. I'm really glad I just paused the store, because the suppliers have been sending emails saying shipping prices are going up. 1 week later, shipping prices are going up again. 1 week later, sorry, we can't ship on weekends anymore. So
Yeah.
I think I dodged a bullet there, because we probably would have made less sales and had to pay for more customer service time answering angry emails of people who are not getting their stuff.
Yeah, I can imagine. I wanted to ask as well, through this whole process of you transitioning from e-commerce to digital courses, and obviously this whole pandemic that's going on, what learns have you had, or what would you consider doing differently if you had to do it all over again?
If I had to do it over again, I would have spent, well, hindsight is 2020. I would have spent
Yeah.
the beginning of the year not focusing on rounding out more of my products for my e-commerce store.
Mm.
And I would have instead used that time to do the soft launch of my course, so that by now I would have had the entire funnel set up, the entire ad campaign ready to go, and I probably could have benefited more now from that.
Mm.
But having said that, I couldn't have seen it coming. And
Mm.
at least I had enough diversity in income streams that I did have something to jump
Mm.
to.
Yeah.
So amongst my creative friends, the people who are doing live stream and YouTube, some are doing okay because they switched to just live streaming all the time and depending on donations from their fans,
Mm.
which is something I used to do a long time ago. And that works too. But there are some people who they relied entirely on live venues, and
Mm.
they're really suffering right now because they're not able to pivot. There's a tiny group of us creatives who started getting into the knowledge business, consulting, so that we can show other people, how do you get online, how do you build a brand, how do
Mm.
you grow audiences. And I think we're probably in the best position right now, because
Yeah.
people, if there's one thing people are willing to do right now, the public, it's use this time to learn.
I agree, 100%. Especially in isolation, it's you just want to expand and learn. And there was some statistic about, is it 3 or 4 out of 5 people at home wanting to upskill.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's also that some people are using this time to really stop and reflect and think about their life,
Mm.
because they were forced to stop doing their regular 9 to 5 and face their life and see, is this what I
Mm.
want to do? So somebody who enrolled in my video for business bootcamp that's about to start is somebody who was working in IT but never really wanted to do that in the first place, and
Mm-hmm.
really wants to start a YouTube channel and start live streaming.
Mm.
So when we talked, we talked about, hey, you're stuck at home anyway, so why not use this time to explore it? I'll
Yeah.
teach you how to do it, and at least you can say you tried, because yeah, I've been there.
Yeah.
I was in exactly the same place,
Mm.
and I know how that is to have that wake up moment
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
realize, is this the life I want to live? So I think it's good that the pandemic has at least allowed people to examine their existence and
Mm.
think about maybe their mortality, and
Mm.
think, what do I want to be doing with my time? Do I want to be doing what I love, what I'm passionate about?
Mm.
When this is all over, what will my life look like now? And is right now maybe the time to start making a change?
Wow. Yeah. I agree. It's a lot of time to contemplate and really consider what we really want to do at this point in time. I think this whole period has really accelerated people's journey. It's, if you're thinking about it before, now you've got so much time to think about it and go, okay, I got to do something differently from now.
Right.
But hey, I think that's a great segue into asking you about, what do you think the future landscape will be in your industry of people, whether it's YouTube or the knowledge business. Where do you think that that's going?
Well, every time I talk about my business, it's twofold, because these are two different businesses. So
Yeah.
in terms of being a creative, there there have been a lot of changes anyway in the last couple of years related to how people who are creative make money online.
Hmm.
So a few times there was a thing called the YouTube ad apocalypse, where, for instance, the way ads worked changed, and a lot of people started losing money because they were relying on ad money alone.
Yeah.
And a hard lesson was learned for some of those creative entrepreneurs, that you have to have multiple income streams. But
Mm.
for anybody who is still holding on to that business model, that's almost entirely over now. So
Mm.
I think post-pandemic, a lot of people who are creative are going to have to start thinking about truly treating what they do as a business,
Yeah.
whether they are a musician or a filmmaker or a painter. The idea of just hoping you make some money on ads, or selling a
Mm.
few, just maybe selling a couple of t-shirts on, Cafe Press or something like that,
Mm.
it's only going to go so far. People who are doing okay and surviving right now are the people who treated their art like a business, and either had other products to sell or other services to sell, or were able to quickly pivot